Hope your day improves.
It won't.
Not with that fucking attitude.
Embezzlement, insurance fraud, wire fraud.
Cammy's name is on everything.
Let's start with Cammy, because out of every storyline heading into Season 3, hers is the one that feels the most unfinished, the most emotionally loaded, and honestly, the most dangerous in terms of where it could go. When you look at where she stands at the end of Season 2, you're looking at a woman who has lost almost everything that gave her life structure. Monty is gone. The company he built, the company she believed in, the company she thought she understood, is now something she can barely hold together. And the people she thought she could lean on have either moved on or are in the process of doing exactly that. That's not just a business problem, that's a personal unraveling that hasn't fully played out yet. What makes Cammy's situation so compelling going into the next season is that she's not a character who falls apart quietly. She holds things together on the surface. She keeps moving, she keeps pushing. But underneath that, there is a level of grief and frustration that hasn't had a proper outlet. Losing Monty wasn't just losing a partner or a mentor. It was losing the person who made sense of everything she was doing. He was the foundation of why MTEX existed, why it mattered, and why she stayed. And now that Nate has revealed that MTEX was never actually designed to survive without Monty, that revelation doesn't just change the business calculation, it changes the meaning of everything she's been fighting for. If the company was never meant to outlast him, then what has she been protecting? What has she been sacrificing for? That question is going to sit with her. And it's not the kind of question that leads to calm, rational decisions. There's also the matter of trust. Cammy entered Season 2 already carrying the weight of uncertainty, and by the time the finale arrived, that weight had only grown heavier. The people around her have been making moves, having conversations, and building plans that she either wasn't part of or wasn't fully informed about. That kind of isolation, even when it's not intentional, creates a particular kind of emotional pressure. It makes you feel like you're always one step behind, always reacting instead of leading. And for someone like Cammy, who has the instincts and the intelligence to be at the center of things, being pushed to the edges is not something she's going to accept without pushing back. Now add Tommy into that equation, because Tommy's new company isn't just a business development. For Cammy, it's going to feel like a statement. It's going to feel like the clearest possible signal that the people she thought were still in this fight with her have already moved on and started building something new without her. When she finds out, and she will find out, the question isn't whether she'll react. The question is what form that reaction takes. There are really two directions this could go, and both of them are believable given everything we know about her character. She could pull away entirely, deciding that if everyone else is moving on, she will too, even if she doesn't have a clear plan for what that looks like. Or she could lean in harder, doubling down on saving MTEX almost out of spite, out of a refusal to let the last thing Monty built disappear while everyone around her walks away from it. Either way, the emotional core of Cammy's storyline in Season 3 is going to be about what she does with grief, when the thing she was grieving through is also being taken away. That's a very specific kind of pain, and Taylor Sheridan has never been someone who lets that kind of pain resolve quickly or neatly. If anything, Season 3 is going to push Cammy into territory that forces her to make choices she can't take back. Whether those choices destroy her, transform her, or somehow lead her somewhere unexpected is the question that's going to drive her entire arc. But one thing already feels certain. The version of Cammy we see in Season 3 is not going to be the same woman we watched hold things together at the end of Season 2. Something is going to break, and when it does, the fallout is going to affect more than just her. Now let's talk about Tommy, because while Cammy's story is built around loss and what comes after it, Tommy's story heading into Season 3 is built around something that looks like momentum, but carries its own very specific set of risks. By the end of Season 2, Tommy had already done what most people in his position wouldn't have had the clarity or the courage to do. He didn't wait around to see if things would stabilize. He didn't hold on, hoping that the situation with MTEX would somehow correct itself. He read the room, he made his calculations, and he started building something new before the old thing had even fully collapsed. That's a very Tommy move, and on the surface, it looks like the right one. The new company is structured in a way that suggests Tommy learned something from everything that went wrong before. It's not a one-man operation held together by a single personality, the way MTEX ultimately was. It's built around a group of people he actually trusts, each of them taking on a role that fits what they're genuinely capable of. Cooper stepping into the president position is one of the most interesting decisions in that entire setup, because Cooper is not the obvious choice. He's not someone who has spent years operating at that level of business leadership. What he has is something harder to teach and harder to fake. He has loyalty, he has instinct, and he has the kind of quiet toughness that comes from being tested and not breaking. Tommy knows that, and putting Cooper at the front of this new venture is a signal that this company is being built on trust first and credentials second. Tommy taking the vice president role is also worth paying attention to, because for someone like Tommy, stepping back from the top position isn't a sign of weakness or hesitation. It's a deliberate choice. It says that he understands the mistakes of the past well enough to know that being the loudest name on the door isn't always the same as being the most effective force inside the room. He's positioning himself to be the one who gets things done, without being the one who absorbs every hit when things go sideways. That's a smarter play than it might look at first glance. But it also creates an interesting question about control, because Tommy has never been someone who stays comfortably in the background for long. At some point, the instinct to take the wheel is going to surface, and when it does, that's where the tension inside this new company starts to become real. Nate handling the financial side adds another layer to watch. Nate is sharp, and his understanding of how money moves in this industry is genuinely one of his strongest qualities. But Nate also carries the weight of everything he knows about MTechs, everything he revealed, and everything those revelations set in motion. He stepped into Season 3 as someone who has already had to make difficult choices about loyalty and honesty. Whether those qualities make him a stabilizing force in the new company or a source of internal friction is something that's going to play out slowly. The same goes for Rebecca, who is taking on operations and legal responsibilities. Rebecca has always been someone who operates with a certain kind of precision, and in a new company that doesn't yet have the protection or the institutional weight of a larger organization, that precision is going to be tested in ways it hasn't been before. Because here's the thing about starting fresh that the end of Season 2 made look almost romantic. Fresh starts come with exposure. When you're part of a large, established company, you have layers of protection around you. You have resources. You have legal infrastructure. You have relationships that took years to build and that carry weight in rooms you haven't even entered yet. When you walk away from all of that and start something new, you lose those layers. You're visible in a different way. Every deal you pursue, every partner you approach, every competitor you step in front of is now looking at a company that hasn't proven itself yet in this new form. And in the oil industry, where the stakes are enormous and the players have long memories, that kind of exposure invites pressure from directions you don't always see coming. Tommy's meeting with Galeno showed that the confidence is there and that the financial backing is real. Securing that kind of funding after being pushed out of MTechs says something significant about how Tommy is still perceived in the industry. People still believe in him. They still see him as someone worth betting on. But belief and backing only take you so far. What comes next is the execution. And execution in this world is never clean. There are always complications, always competing interests, always someone who sees your momentum as a threat to their own position. Season 3 is going to test whether everything Tommy built in those final moments of Season 2 is as solid as it looked. And given the world this show lives in, the answer to that question is almost certainly going to be no. At least, not without a fight. Let's shift to Cooper and Ariana, because their story going into Season 3 is carrying a weight that the end of Season 2 tried to soften but never actually resolved. The engagement, the sense that they finally have something stable to hold on to after everything they went through, it's a genuinely hopeful development. And in the context of this show, that hope is exactly what makes it feel fragile. Because Taylor Sheridan doesn't give his characters happiness without attaching a cost to it. And the cost in Cooper and Ariana's case hasn't been fully paid yet. Not even close. Go back to what actually happened. A man is dead. That's not a small thing. And the show never treated it as one. The way the situation was handled, the way it was quietly resolved to keep Cooper out of serious legal trouble, required a level of influence and maneuvering that didn't come for free. Someone had to pull strings. Someone had to make calls and apply pressure in the right places at the right time. And in stories like this one, that kind of help always comes with an expectation attached to it. You don't get that kind of protection handed to you simply because people like you. You get it because someone decided you were worth protecting for reasons that serve their own interests. And eventually, those interests are going to surface in a way that puts Cooper in a position he didn't ask to be in and can't easily walk away from. There's also the question of who that man was and what his death actually means in the larger picture. He wasn't just a random threat. He was someone with connections, with influence of his own, with people around him who had interests in how his story ended. The fact that his death was managed doesn't mean those people disappeared. It means they went quiet. And quiet in this world is not the same as gone. It's possible that Season 3 is going to reintroduce that thread in a way that pulls Cooper directly back into something he thought was behind him. The people who were connected to that man, the ones who had reasons to care about what happened to him, they are not the type to simply accept a quiet resolution and move on. At some point, someone is going to want answers. And Cooper, whether he's ready for it or not, is going to be the one they come looking for. What makes this particularly interesting is the timing. Cooper is stepping into the president role of Tommy's new company at the exact same moment that this unresolved threat is still sitting in the background of his personal life. That's a significant amount of pressure to be carrying simultaneously. On one side, he has the professional responsibility of leading a new venture that everyone around him is counting on. On the other side, he has a personal situation that could explode at any moment and take everything he's building with it. Managing both of those things at the same time, without letting one destroy the other, is going to require a kind of focus and composure that Cooper has shown he's capable of, but has never been tested on quite this level before. Ariana's position in all of this is just as complicated. Because she's not a passive character waiting on the edges of Cooper's story, she has her own relationship to what happened, her own trauma connected to the incident, and her own way of processing the fact that something very dark was resolved in a way that she may not fully understand or feel settled about. The engagement gives their relationship a sense of forward momentum. But forward momentum doesn't erase what's behind you. It just means you're moving faster toward the point where the past catches up. And in Ariana's case, the past is tied to something violent and unresolved that neither of them have had the space to fully sit with. Their wedding, if it happens in Season 3, is not going to be a simple celebration. This show doesn't do simple celebrations. What it's more likely to be is a moment that gets complicated by exactly the kind of external pressure that's been building since the end of Season 2. Whether that means a direct threat, an unwanted reappearance of someone connected to the incident, or simply the weight of everything unspoken finally surfacing at the worst possible moment, the wedding is shaping up to be one of the most tension-filled sequences of the entire season. Not because the relationship isn't real or isn't worth rooting for, but because the world around them has never been willing to let them have something good without testing whether they can hold on to it. Cooper's arc in Season 3 is ultimately going to be about whether the version of himself he's stepping into, the leader, the partner, the man building something new, can survive contact with the version of his past that never got properly buried. That's a story worth watching, and the fact that it's happening at the same time as everything else in Tommy's world is shifting, and Cammy's situation is reaching a breaking point, means that Season 3 is stacking its tensions in a way that's going to make it very hard for any one character to find solid ground for very long. Now let's talk about something that doesn't get discussed enough when people break down what's coming in Season 3. And that's the world these characters are operating in. Because Tommy's new company, Cooper's new role, Cammy's unraveling situation, none of it exists in isolation. It all exists inside an industry that is brutal, political, and completely unforgiving to anyone who shows even a moment of weakness. The oil business in this show has never been presented as a clean or straightforward environment. It's a world where relationships are transactional, where loyalty has a price, and where the line between a business rival and an actual enemy is thinner than most people realize until it's too late. And Season 3 is going to put every single one of these characters directly in the middle of that world at their most exposed and vulnerable point. Think about what Tommy's new company actually represents to the people already operating at that level. It's not just a new business, it's a statement. It's Tommy saying that being pushed out didn't finish him, that the relationships he built and the reputation he earned are still worth something, and that he's coming back with a structure that he controls on his own terms.